enhancing climate change and social impact with sustainable technologies.
So today we're going to actually be talking about sustainability, climate, the Sustainable Development Goals, and how technology is going to be able to enable us to reach them. Because who knows when the Sustainable Development Goals target is? What year is the Sustainable Development Goals? 2030, and it's 2023 now, so we haven't got that many years to go. And 70% of the Sustainable Development Goals can be enabled by technology. And so what we're going to be talking about on this panel today are some really concrete examples of how people are using technology to advance climate action and to advance other aspects of the Sustainable Development Goals. Because if you look at it, we're talking about industry, smart cities, we're talking about financial inclusion, we're talking about gender equality, we're talking about life on the land. And so there's so many aspects that technology can really enable things, and that's the power, and that's going to be what you learn about in this wonderful panel. So let me just ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about who they are and what they're working on. So Stephanie, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. I'm Stephanie Tower. I am the business development lead of nChain. We are a blockchain research and solutions company based in Zug, Switzerland, and we're opening up our business here in the Philippines. What we do is work with the Philippine government in terms of digitalizing a lot of things, from government services to records, and including looking into applications, use cases that where they can leverage blockchain technology in order to provide better services to citizens. So that's what we're very much focused on. And at the same time, providing education as we go on here.
I really like that, because I think the first thing that drew me to blockchain technology was the power of social transformation. So this idea about providing services to citizens is really important and not often talked about. So I'm so glad we're going to talk about it today. So Abhishek, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Thomason. I am Abhishek. I'm an entrepreneur in this domain since the last over 6-7 years. And that has largely been into social impact. That's why the topic. By social impact, what the work I've been doing is largely across farmers. So I don't come from a farming background, but we came across this use case where we could enable farmers to take loans, but definitely using a very complicated technology like blockchain, making it simple for them, and bringing in some NFTs, bringing in some DeFi, giving them these opportunities and enabling them to live a better livelihood. That is something I've been doing since the last quite a few years. And in addition to that, I have been teaching blockchain technology as well, because I started at a time when there was a big dearth of talent in blockchain and a lot of concepts were unclear to people. So I started delivering them, and I love teaching blockchain. So I'm an entrepreneur and author in this domain, and yeah, that's what I've been doing.
That's fantastic, but I'd love to hear some more about your farmers, because farmers using DeFi, it seems to defy the imagination. So tell us what actually you're doing with the farmers and how they're benefiting from this technology.
That's exactly what I thought when we were starting with this kind of a use case. So there have been more than a couple of projects that I've been working with in a very similar kind of a domain. One, which was working with farmers in India. So a state in Maharashtra, which is India's largest warehousing capacity state. And we got all the government warehouses on board on the blockchain. So basically as nodes on the blockchain. Difficult story there, but we did that. So it happened. Then another difficult step was to bring banks on the blockchain as nodes. So you can imagine, right? Talking to them about DeFi or the bridging of CeFi with DeFi, and then eventually getting them on board as nodes. Huge task. Once we did that, we were able to offer those centralized finance loans now via a much more decentralized mechanism to the end user who is a farmer. Now, farmer could be, harvesting any of 88 different non-perishable crops. They just stored them. We tokenize them as NFTs, or basically SFTs, ERC1155s on the blockchain, and then enable them to avail just with a click of a button and a multilingual app, enable them to take loans against those. And then the same story goes on with another project, which is working in Zimbabwe and Ghana. And a very similar story. They are giving the entire life cycle, including transportation, trade, and everything for the farmers there. And why these two markets I've been specifically interested in is because the farmers here have a scope of earning at least 35 to 40% more than their realizable income, right? As compared to when they're receiving pennies on the dollar when they just go out into the market without using this kind of a technologies. In India, that's 35 to 40%. In Africa, that is 300%. So that's why this use case, I believe, makes a lot of sense.
So just getting a better deal for the farmers is part of that. And the other thing that I've seen blockchain being used for is the transparency and traceability in the supply chains.
I would like to add on that because in relation to the farmers, we are in partnership with eLivestock. It is a company in Africa. And what they do is they very much focus on the agricultural side, and they give like passports to cattle. So for the reason they are doing that is because we want to trace the behavior, not just the number of cattle available in that space, but really trace and put the data on a blockchain to be able to use in many things. It could be in supply chain, determining the healthcare data of the cattle, where the diseases that could be coming out in that population of cattle. So using blockchain technology and using the data powered by blockchain technology, making it immutable, transparent, and auditable, you're able to what? Provide, make decisions, better decisions in order to create more applications that will be helpful to the industry of agriculture and even farmers themselves. So it does not only benefit agriculture, it eventually benefit other industries such as what? F&B. Because if you're dealing with steak, you can simply determine delivery from farm to restaurant table, and you would find out how healthy the steak you're eating, where it came from, and how sustainable it was brought into your table from where it came from. So all of these things can be recorded. Everything will be traceable and everything will be transparent using technologies such as blockchain.
And I think the other piece of it too that we're seeing is using smart contracts in supply chains allows for immediate payments at each point in the supply chain. And we're seeing Walmart and some of the other big supermarket lines looking for this blockchain provenance. But Stephanie, tell me, you spoke to me yesterday and you said you're really interested in blockchain in humanitarian settings. Can you talk a little bit about some of the practical uses that you're seeing?
Yeah, right now the United Nations, they have this network system called Building Blocks. So United Nations have this ecosystem of different organizations, and there are 40 organizations, including some of governments, that are using that building that network or building blocks powered by BSV blockchain. So what I do is, because there is the World Food Program, there is WHO, so everyone tries to get funding, and there is it has become sort of like a war, like a systems war, like who gets the funding first, for what beneficiaries, or for who. So the reason why they did that is for them to be able to coordinate that all of these resources are being spread out equally to the beneficiaries. There's no duplication of what do you call that, donations to certain beneficiaries, and they're able to utilize it in a more efficient way. So for the World Food Program, using this blockchain-powered system, what I do is they use a unique identifier to each beneficiary they have. So for example, they have sort of like a digital ID, and through the use of blockchain technology, they're able to provide and determine who already got those benefits, or if even with transferring like food vouchers. So it's easier for them to do that because they're using this tool, and it also gives dignity to the beneficiaries, because it's not like they're just going to wait for food to be delivered for them. They're empowered now, because if they have food voucher, they have the capability of choosing the food they want for themselves, and at the same time empowering the local market economy where they live using this tool, this blockchain technology.
No, thank you. And that World Food Programme, Building Blocks, is a really well-known program, and it was one of the first use cases. And one thing that's important to think about, because in humanitarian, 80% of the expenditure is either direct cash transfers or logistics. So if you can take the friction and the cost out of the direct transfers and you can improve the supply chain, then it's really going to make a big difference to humanitarian
And
operations.
that's exactly what they did, and it removes unnecessary third parties because you just simply, it has become peer-to-peer, which is the very essence of, and the very foundation of what blockchain is trying to do in the world.
And Abhishek, just coming back to you, please feel free to come in on the humanitarian side of it, but one of the questions that I wanted to ask both of you, because, you know, building blocks I heard about in 2017, so this has been going on for quite some time. And the promise of blockchain in humanitarian and different settings is there, and it's powerful and it's potent, but we're not seeing it at scale. So I'd like both of you to talk about what is the scalability problem that we're not seeing these social impact solutions taking a much, much more wider reach. So please, any comments on humanitarian, and let's talk about scale.
Right. In fact, this is something I've noticed as well since quite some time now. The problem is, I believe that it's still very much driven by crypto. Okay, the entire conversation was in 2017, maybe 95% crypto and very 5% of good use cases. Now it has changed quite a lot. Like the use cases I was talking about, it is about social impact. At least these words have started coming in. But overall, also still the conversation is not being driven by that. Second is regulation. Even if you want to do so much good, for example, when we were working, we have been working for these farmers, to be able to, what we could not do in India, but now I'm able to do in Zimbabwe and Ghana, the only reason, technically, it's because regulations. Entire life cycle we cannot cover, trading we cannot do without the government, a lot of things. So all these things, I believe, need to come in place. There are corporations, there are organizations working towards it. So I've been working, you know, in some sort of fashion with the World Economic Forum, their Global Shapers initiative, or we have been supported in the past by the United Nations Development Program. So these have, the potential to bring in these kinds of projects, and now they are doing that. They are exploring, wild ways to use NFTs, to do something you might not have even thought of in climate. Like, for example, carbon credits. Carbon credits has been, an important factor for long. But now many corporations and companies are jumping in, bringing in NFTs, making the traceability complete, and absolute, and then making sure that the use case runs, its course. So I have started seeing a lot of such implementations happening, maybe 20-30% now. By 2025, 26, maybe we'll see a good, healthy combination of crypto as well as really good use cases which are driving. Just one more example, it came to my mind. So I've been working with the Ethereum Foundation. The Ethereum Foundation's one such initiative is the Next Billion. And so I'm an Ethereum fellow, and the entire idea behind it was to, make sure. Not sure why this is happening. Yeah,
I think it must be you. It only happens to you.
What is going
yeah,
on?
tech problem.
Keep on going. Bring the house down.
Yeah, but I hope everyone can hear us.
That's not sustainable, you guys.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, again, I think the Ethereum's objective is to bring blockchain technology to public good. That's their statement. These are amazing, right? You didn't see that in 2017, 2018, 2019, right? But now it is. So that's my take. I think it's going to change very soon. 2-3 years up tops, maybe.
Yeah,
So
how about you, Stephanie?
I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. There is such a vital role government should play in this. And that's the reason why there's not much adoption. Just like what you said, regulation. Who drives regulation? It's always the government side. There's so much private entities can do and enterprises, but without the support and the drive of the government institutions, there's no adoption we're going to see. So what's happening right now in the Philippines, there's a mandate from the Philippine president to digitalize the entire country, and that is backed by a pending law. And with that, it will not just encourage, but it will push all of the government agencies here to look into the power of every existing technology that we have today. And it's not just limited to blockchain technology or AI, everything else that is available. And I think that is a very important aspect here in terms of adoption. And that is the reason why we see there's just such a slow growth because before, like in 2017, governments are not paying attention here. You know, it's being driven by communities, by certain industries, but not really by the governments. They would look into it, but not really do something about it. I sit in the council of a blockchain council of Department of Science and Technology. It is an agency reporting to the Office of the President here in the Philippines, and they are self-aware that they need more information. They want to learn more about the science of blockchain. And this type of government entity here in the Philippines is one of the driving forces, right? In order to make all of these products and solutions through research and development, for them to realize how these technologies can be utilized. And I think it's a good step, you know, realizing where there is a need of and actually applying and doing something, taking action to address that. And I think the government of the Philippines is ready, and they're doing everything that it could in order for us to get to that golden digital era that we hope to be in.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we've got a few points that have come up out of that. One is this issue of regulation, because governments need to get engaged, the regulators need to get engaged to make it possible for people to be able to implement the technologies. I think the second one that we haven't touched on, you did say eliminate middlemen, but eliminating middlemen means some people are out of jobs, and this is a kind of social legacy system issue. So there's resistance sometimes for people taking up the new technologies, and so it's going to be slow for that reason. And I think the third point that you mentioned, which is really important, is just education. How do people learn and appreciate what are the possibilities? And I think one of the keys for people like us is to find those use cases and share those use cases in digestible forms. That's really important.
Can I comment on the second point that you made about eliminating? I believe it's yes, and it happens as we evolve as a society. There will be industries, there will be roles that will be eliminated, but that doesn't mean it's not going to evolve. So you have to keep up, and you have to find yourself evolving as the world changes. Because if you're not going to evolve, then you're going to be killed. So I think yes, there will be like.
This is very extreme on a humanitarian panel.
I mean, not just from a humanitarian perspective.
Okay, everyone, evolve or be killed. We heard it here.
I mean, killed like you're gonna be done. And I'm just saying, like, an industry can be killed if they do not evolve, right? Just like how we've seen like Kodak, you know, all of these stories from our history. And it's just gonna be the same with how we adopt technology and even how we as a person evolve towards it. So I don't think we should be afraid of having roles or jobs or industries eliminated. We have to look into how we're gonna evolve those things in order to keep up with all of these changes.
Go ahead.
Just one second. So one thing is the way, you know, in the last panel, they were talking about AI and how you should adapt to the change. In this case, when blockchain comes in, of course, there's a piece where you said that, you know, to get killed, of course, you know, or get obsolete largely.
That's the quote of the conference.
Yeah, that's the point. So, but you know, the point is that in many use cases, disintermediation just does not mean job less. I mean, you know, the loss of jobs. For example, in our use case, if there is disintermediation, what it results is into one, reduction in TAT. The same farmer, who's by the way not well-to-do, he's the first person who actually needs a job, or you know, he needs money to run. He used to take 15 days to get a loan, now gets 15 minutes. Huge, you know, reduction in TAT. Secondly, with disintermediation, the cost comes lower. The farmer who had to pay up outrageous interest rates of up to 30-35%, pushing him further down. You know what? In the last 1 decade, I have a number, you know, somewhere in my mind that around 300,000 farmers committed suicides just in India. I'm not talking about Africa, where the problem is much worse, right? You see? So with this kind of a disintermediation, yes, of course, some players are going out of the market, but it's driving the entire ecosystem much better, right? So I think that's also a very big angle where we see blockchain bringing in disintermediation.
No, I completely agree with you. The reason I made the point, though, was we're talking about scaling, and you're going to get resistance to scaling. It's not that change won't happen. but there's going to be people who will be fighting against it. And I think that's why emerging markets are actually going to be the first ones to have these use cases, because their needs are greater. And in some cases, they don't have legacy systems that need to be overturned, because the poor are unbanked anyway, so there's no bank to get out of the way. And so that's a really big thing. But let's just change for a moment and talk about climate change, because you talked about the carbon credits, and obviously it's an important issue that a lot of people are thinking about. We've got COP coming up in UAE later on in this year. And there are a lot of ways that blockchain, Web3 and other technologies can actually be harnessed to support climate action. So just to talk about some of them, and you spoke about carbon credits, which has got quite popular because of the tokenization capability of blockchain. But we've also got a whole range of green digital asset solutions. We've got the capability of smart grid management, but both on-grid and off-grid, like the Brooklyn microgrid. And also people in poor villages can have solar panels and can sell micro amounts of solar electricity to others. We have the whole verification, measurement and reporting, so the transparency and trust in both climate reporting, but also the flows of climate funds. And then the gamification and NFTs. So people are actually developing games that incentivize people to reduce their carbon footprint or to take climate positive action. So one of the reasons I'm here is to go and find out as much as I can about gamification, and then think about how it can be applied to real world problems like climate. And then the final one is this whole notion of a DAO, a distributed autonomous organisation, to galvanise climate action and to create a network of climate activists all around the world. So there's a lot that we can do for climate as well. I wondered if you wanted to speak any more around climate or any of the other things that you've seen.
In climate specifically, over last some time, what I've noticed is that as we talked about the carbon credits problem, right? So carbon credits has been there, and there are regulations regarding carbon credits where you have to, fulfill those requirements, right? There was one thing to do it via Web 2. For example, when I was booking the tickets to Manila, I saw that I got a quick comparison even on booking.com that which airline is using what kind of carbon, footprint, has what kind of a footprint, and what is it doing about the credits, right? But what I recently saw, in fact, we participated in a hackathon, we won that, and it was about how we could realize this carbon footprint reduction dream, the carbon credit dream, and the regulation requirement by using NFTs. So each of those, 1 unit of such carbon footprint was being tokenized as an NFT. And then, you could make a lot of functionality with it, run an entire platform, probably auction it, probably, earn, raise funds for that. There are so many things to do, which maybe could be possible with Web 2, but with Web 3, it just makes so much more sense. On top of that, when talking about climate, so not just carbon credits maybe, but even a project comes to my mind like Moss. What Moss does is simply tokenizes the land on Amazon rainforest, allows someone maybe sitting in India to preserve the Amazon rainforest. Was it possible even 2 years back, 1 year back, right, when they did not start, or others, right? This definitely drives in a lot of gamification angle as well to that, and that just, helps build a business, right? That helps build a community. Without the community, we have seen that most blockchain projects do not really do well, exist, right? Community is at the heart of it, right? Everyone here, everything that we are seeing around us are based on community, I believe, right? And that's why we are here, right? But I think this is a very novel way, as you said, a novel way of looking at solving climate problems or sustainability problems, or solving for those sustainable development goals, helping those SDGs before the time runs out, right? Yeah.
I want to take up 2 points that you mentioned because I think they're really important. The first one is the critical role that NFTs are going to play moving forward in Web3 and in the future, not just drunken monkeys, but actually as something that's going to be that digital receipt evidence that we're going to use in so many different ways. But the other one that I think is so important is this idea of incentivizing people who are the owners or custodians of large tracts of land like the Amazon rainforest, because at the moment, if they don't sell the timber, allow it to be pulled down and for cash crops to be grown, they have no income. So if we're interested in the planet, the ability to be able to incentivise the custodians of the land to continue to allow the forest to be there and to tend to the forest is a really important innovation that's now possible. And Stephanie, I saw you were about to say something, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted those 2 points.
It's all good, and I think it all boils down to what? To the data that we get from all of these things, from the industry, from all of the initiatives that are happening right now. And I think sometimes we're losing sight of that, the availability of the data and how you can utilize them and how you can see patterns from the data that is being recorded on chain. And I think that will be the driving force of many, many applications and use cases and solutions that can be created using these technologies like blockchain. And I think as companies, as investors, we should not lose sight of the power of data, because data dictates what your feelings cannot, right? I could say, I think climate change is happening now right here, but maybe data doesn't show that, right? So look into the data, see how, analyze it and see the patterns. What can we do using this data? And everything is stored on the blockchain, and that's the beauty of blockchain. It's a time-stamped, distributed ledger. It's immutable. You can simply see the history of all of these data, in relation to climate, and we can simply create, not simply, could be complex, but through that, it will give us, of course, the tool to coming up with, hopefully, the best solutions to slow it down and hopefully improve the world.
Oh, thank you. And that's our aspiration. But we've just got a few minutes left. What I'd like to get comments from you on is we've discussed and we've shown that there are a whole lot of different ways that technology can accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. But I think this is not going to happen unless we build that whole tech for sustainability ecosystem, because we need all the pieces. We need the innovators, we need the accelerators and the incubators, we need the capital, we need the government policy and the government regulation, and we need to have solutions that will scale. We need all of these things if we're going to have anything of an impact. So I'd love to hear from both of you as we end the session. How do we build that tech for sustainability ecosystem so that we can change the world, we can use this technology to scale and really have an impact? Abhishek.
Sure. This is something we have been trying to do since quite some time, bringing multiple players on board, right? And there are so many ecosystems. The reason why it's very crypto focused, or it's very, all those end user use cases focused, but not an ecosystem focused yet, most blockchain use cases, is because there are so many players needed to be on the platform to run such large scale ecosystems, right? Like in our case, if you couldn't get the bank or the government on board, but the first point is to enable them or make them aware of what blockchain is. They are very happy with legacy technologies. Everyone here would have noticed that, right? In fact, in the audience, right? So it does take time. We took 4 years, right? That's not, a less amount of time, considering that the blockchain itself has been for such a short amount of time, right? So we did take time, but once it was there, or at least once major players were in it, others followed suit, right? So this is something that trying to get the ball rolling is something we have tried. I'm able to see that across the globe, many use cases that I'm working with, they're somewhere trying to get their regulations to turn for them. There are many jurisdictions which are not really, very easy for blockchain and crypto businesses to run. Even we had to do that. We had to set up 2 different companies, do a lot of things, right, to make sure that the value reaches the farmer. So much so to help the farmer who's in the same country, right? This is where the governments and the other players should step in. And there's no roadmap. No one of us has a roadmap, but I think we are all figuring out, and we've pretty much figured out a good amount of that till now. Right?
Okay, Stephanie, building the ecosystem, the last few minutes are yours.
I believe that we are in the biggest social impact movement of all time. And it's important that each one of us, not just enterprises, but it should be a lot of sectors, from the government to private to academe to research and development, training and development. We should collectively, immerse ourselves together into this into this environment of blockchain technology, what exactly it is, the science of it that is beyond cryptocurrency, as many people know it. Take the time, because it takes a lot of time. I work with the government, and it takes a lot of time first realizing the data that they have that they don't have, and putting it in an infrastructure, a blockchain infrastructure that will power solutions. So it takes a lot of time, but if all of us understand and collaborative enough to learn that there's so much more that we can create out of this beyond sustainability. I mean, just like the real world use cases that solve problems, things can change, but we need to take the time, because it would really need some time. But the time is now, and it's happening today. So we make sure that we should be part of that biggest social impact movement that is happening right now.
And what a great way to finish. This big social impact movement, we can enable it using a DAO. We can bring all of the players together, and we can incentivize and reward and keep this whole thing going in a connected and fully transparent way. It's the Web3 Sustainability DAO. You heard it here. You heard a few other things here that I'm not going to repeat as well. But I'd just like you to give a big hand to our fantastic panel. Thank you for a really rich conversation. And thank you for the work that you're doing. It really matters. So big hand, everyone, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.